Nothing like a good 7-6 to get your mind concentrated ahead of a Champions Cup final. Liverpool are through to play Real Madrid in Kiev, and we're going to be talking about that in great detail. It's the hardest working man in showbiz with us this morning. Kevin, did you go home last night?
I did go home, yeah. Barely go home, yeah. Yeah, it is a Champions League final. We're not in rugby mode today as well, Ger. You know that as well.
Cup.
Yeah. No, I did manage to get myself some sleep last night. Yeah, so it was okay. Yeah, it wasn't too bad. Yeah.
Well, welcome to the morning. You were saying you don't really see this hour of the morning unless you're on a rollover.
Unless I'm on a flight or unless I'm going into studio on a Skype call, then yeah, I never normally see this time of the morning. Yeah.
There was never that much doubt about Liverpool going through once they scored twice in the first half, or was there any kind of sense of panic in the second half? There's probably slight panic, I feel. Roma needed to get that goal that they scored, in the 93rd, 94th minute, whatever it was, when they eventually did score it. They probably need to score that 10 minutes earlier to really give Liverpool some troubles. I think once Mane had got that goal, it looked to me, I think it was never really too troublesome. That's all I would say. I know there's a couple of penalty shouts that Di Francesco, the Roma managers, complained about, which he should have had. The penalty they were given was soft anyway. Yeah.
It was a soft pen. But overall, you can't tell me. I know that, Di Francesco, it would be complaining about all sorts of decisions that's perhaps gone against his side. You can't say Liverpool didn't deserve to go through that. Liverpool were more than warranted it anyway.
The Italian press is screaming injustice this morning. It's like, that's not really true, is it?
No, not at all. Liverpool 5-0 up from that first leg, which could have been 10. Even last night, Liverpool were still creating chances last night when they went 2-0 up at half time, weren't they? It was. I think it was a little bit unnecessary that they conceded the amount of goals they conceded.
Yeah.
They could have seen it through, made it a little bit easier for themselves, made the scoreline look a little bit more in their favour. But overall, Liverpool fully deserved to get through. Yeah,
I'd say both Real Madrid and Liverpool feel like they have the opportunity to win this game. Like, neither side is going to be worried too much about the other.
You can't get it. You can't get any clearer than that. That is the assessment that both sides. You can watch. They'll both watch videos on each other and glaring deficiencies within both sides, but unbelievable attacking talent in both sides. So I think Liverpool probably go into it thinking, we can open up this Real Madrid side, we can seriously go and hurt them. But as it proved last night, and it's been proved this season, Liverpool look erratic defensively. I think as a back four last night, they didn't look as comfortable as we maybe seen them certainly since the turn of the year. Since signing Van Dijk, they've just looked calmer. If you look at even against Man City in the last round where they were under pressure in the first half, they could have been 2-0 down at half-time, perhaps should have been as well, but they looked a lot calmer defensively. Whereas last night, there was that erratic side to the defending last night.
They were screaming at each other from the first minute.
Yeah.
Like, even though they've a 3-goal lead, there was that.
Lovren doesn't bring calmness to the back four, Joe. No matter what it is, he creates panic, I feel, and he wants to win the ball too eagerly at times. He wants to go and try and get in front of attacking players, takes a chance, and I think that just makes a little bit, or brings Liverpool a little bit more uncertainty. Karius last night looked a little bit vulnerable.
Yeah. For
all that he's actually done well, maybe since he's got that run in the side, he's still not a great goalkeeper. So Real Madrid can target Liverpool's deficiencies and really have a go at them. But on the flip side, looking at Real Madrid the other night as well, they look so vulnerable. So yeah, it could be anything. You're expecting goals. There probably won't be. Probably a 0-0 dour draw, but I can't see it the way that both sides play.
It's more likely to be a 2-2 draw going to extra time, isn't it?
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably, yeah.
Here's what we have coming up for you. We're going to get to the sports pages in just a minute. Talk more detail about Madrid and Liverpool. David Sneyd is going to join us. We'll talk a bit about some of the Irish football situation as well, and maybe compare and contrast, for example, the amount of goals that Liverpool have scored and the amount of Irish players who have scored in the Premier League. That's goals that Liverpool have scored in the Champions League versus Irish goals in the Premier League. Bringing some of the stuff from around the country. The GAA launches are in full swing. We'll talk Mayo, of course, today, ahead of their game against Galway, which is pretty imminent now, 10 days away. And then the Antrim actor, Shane McNaughton, who is cutting a swathe through the New York acting scene, having cut a swathe through the fields, the green glens of Antrim, as I heard, for Cushendall, and of course for Antrim, he's Terence McNaughton's son. Time now, though, for the newspapers.
OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.
Okay, going to start with the Irish Independent, and obviously confusion reigns over the potential move to sale for Paddy Jackson, Stuart Olding. Rory O'Connor has some interesting details here. Obviously, if you saw this yesterday, the Telegraph ran with the story that it was a done deal, that contracts had been discussed, numbers had been fleshed out, that it was going to be a reduction in pay for Paddy Jackson from 250 grand to 200 grand. But then yesterday afternoon, Sale came out and said, no, No. This was never confirmed. They've had complaints from MPs and complaints from season ticket holders, and so they were like completely distancing themselves from the notion of signing Jackson and Holding. However, as Rory O'Connor points out, the Australian player James O'Connor was due to sign for sale, and they were like, no, we're definitely not signing James O'Connor. And then 2 weeks later, they signed James O'Connor. So there's a track record. And there was also the South African scrum half Faf de Klerk, who they issued a statement saying, no, we're not signing Faf de Klerk. 2 weeks later, Faf de Klerk signs for them. So maybe it's flying a kite to see what the response is going to be like from sponsors, from supporters, and from the general public. And if that response is completely negative, you're like, we never meant, no, that wasn't us, that was somebody else.
But they're going to get a negative response wherever it is. At first, there will be a bit of a shitstorm probably to start with, won't there? And then it'll almost be just get on with it. That's what it seems to me how it's going to go. But the lads themselves probably, they're just thinking they're in limbo, aren't they? That as long as this goes, and the more scrutiny that's put on where they're going to go to, then it's putting pressure on the clubs, I suppose. So it's a difficult one, I suppose, for clubs actually to commit themselves and think, we're going to go with it. But we'll see what happens with that one.
I was making the point yesterday that if you're a club and you've decided that you're okay with what's happened in the past and you just want to move forward and sign players at a below market rate, then don't do it now. Wait until just before the season starts. Like you lose nothing by not signing them now, apart from the opportunity to sign them. And really, if any club is actually going to burst in, break the door down and go, no, we have to have these guys now, then they're going to. There's obviously a trade-off that they're willing to take for that, but I don't think a lot of clubs are actually willing to do that. So,
but I can maybe judge it then in football terms, because if a lad's out of contract and they're not necessarily the most desirable player when they're out of contract, you'll constantly see actually the season starting. So the free agents then, they know full well the clubs that he's like almost like my fallback plan. Exactly. If we don't necessarily, we're not able to get a player, we can actually go and get him at any stage while keeping the player. Yeah, we want you. Just keeping him right or keeping him sweet, I suppose.
I think that's exactly it. And as that goes on, the amount of money you have to pay them lessens and lessens and lessens, and they get more desperate to sign for you. So it always seemed to me like there were agents in the background saying, there's a massive market, loads of people want these guys. But what happens then when you don't actually have a signing, the agents end up looking like the boy who cried wolf. It's like, it turns out nobody wants you guys.
Yeah. I know.
And actually, the toxicity around you is so severe that why would we rush? Why would we rush it in? The other thing I think is that if I was advising them, you would wait until one of the big teams loses an out half for the season to injury. If you think about, there's like 12 teams in England and 14 teams in. Like one of them is going to need an out half urgently at some point in September.
I understand totally there's going to be so much pressure on the two lads. No matter where they go, there'll be so much pressure, so much scrutiny, as I said earlier on them. But on the flip side of that, what you're saying is that are they going to be right physically when they go in? Because all of a sudden then they've got to be right physically. Yeah, they'll probably think physically maybe in myself I'm fine, but have they been taking the hits? Have they necessarily been right to actually step into someone's shoes to say if there's an injury then perform to such a level that you've got to try and maybe so it masks what's happened in the past and masks maybe the scrutiny that's been around you. That is the fine balance, I think, with this. That's what I'd feel.
And that's why you would try and get, if you were them, try and get them into a club earlier rather than...
If I'm them, I'd probably want to do that. That's what I'd rather do, because I think you've got them maybe a little bit, you've got a few weeks to, even if you don't necessarily start one of the early games in the season, then you actually look into it and you're thinking, well, I'll tell you what now, I'm going to be fine in 2 or 3 months, rather than trying to hit the ground running where you signed as a big player as a replacement for injury. Yeah.
And it's in competitive mode straight away. So we'll talk about Rory McIlroy as well a little bit later. Rory's open secret is the story. I don't care about the US Open or the Open Championship anymore. I think he's kind of, slight overreaction here from McIlroy. We may as well talk about this now, actually. So this is a story that's in the papers today where he's recovered from his Masters, I can't remember, dismay I think was the word that was used, and he did it by watching box sets. Billions is the one that I haven't watched any Billions.
No, I haven't seen it at all.
It doesn't really appeal to me that much. Maybe if you're Rory McIlroy
what obviously you're going to tell me what it's about then. What's the story? What's the
there's a guy who's a billionaire and it's about his lifestyle.
Right.
And the kind of difficulty of being a billionaire, I think.
Right.
Something that maybe Rory McIlroy identifies with a bit more than you and me.
Yeah, the private jet lifestyle. I think that's what it is, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. and also by like just staying in, and then eventually his wife was like, come on, let's get out. And so they get out and they see the real world again. He's like, I just didn't, put too much pressure on myself that day. And the other thing was like by reading self-help psychology books, the Chin Paradox and that kind of stuff. I don't know. I think now it's become... You're old enough to remember Ivan Lendl trying to win Wimbledon. Yeah. He won everything else, and it was going to be like a career Grand Slam for him, and clearly the best player in the world by a mile over the rest of the season, but just couldn't win Wimbledon. Had a grass court built into his house that was like the same stimp meter as Wimbledon, all that kind of nonsense, right? And he becomes completely obsessed with it. It's his holy grail. It feels a little bit like Rory saying, I don't care about the Open, I don't care about the US Open, the biggest tournament in the world, the most hype is the Masters. It's like, now it's holy grail. It's like, you just ratcheted up the pressure even more.
Yeah, I know.
You want to be ratcheting that down going, look, I just need to treat it like any other tournament.
Well, he's saying there, if he's saying that, look, I want to, get out and try to enjoy his life to an extent and try to maybe experience other things, that's a difficulty. It's a difficulty. I think any sportsman and woman will certainly recognise the certainly mental torture that probably he's going through now. And as you say, it's built up now to such a thing that even in the build-up to the Open, even in the build-up to the USPGA, the US Open, whatever it'll be further down the line, the Masters will be brought up.
Yeah.
So it'll be, now that's going then into next season. As soon as we're getting in the hype from January next year, it'll be all towards the Masters again. So it is something where you just think, in general, just go and concentrate now on the next tournament. Just leave it now. That's the way it is. If he doesn't win the Masters, yes, he maybe in his own head would maybe be gutted for what's happened and the failures that he's had on the last day. But ultimately, he's just still had a great career and he's still going great. I know, but go on. Sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think you're dead right. I think the other thing is that if he wins a British Open or US Open again, he'd always be like, it's only a British Open and a US Open. A little bit.
Yeah.
He actually won't be able to enjoy them as much because they're all still majors.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
I know what you mean. I know exactly
by putting this hierarchy in place, which clearly is there anyway, but by telling everybody it's there, it's like, yeah, I won another British Open. I'm really thrilled, but I'm completely empty inside until I win the Masters. I don't know. It just seems like it's extra pressure when he doesn't need it.
I think even as well when you start to talk, he's talking about the chimp paradox. There's so many sportsmen and women that have been speaking about that over the last years. I think you start to be even more pressure because there's more scrutiny. They're saying, look, is he right mentally? Is he strong enough to actually deal with that with another last day at the Masters or another last day at a major tournament? That's what's going to be around him now. I just think personally, from a personal point of view, if I've ever worked, because I worked with a psychologist for a while when I was at Sunderland, I just kept it to myself. Look, it's my own thing. I'd rather just keep my head with, going to see a psychologist, going to maybe if I'm having troubles on the pitch.
How did that work? How did it come about?
It come about through a friend put me in contact with a psychologist over in England called Keith Power, who he worked with David James, he worked with a couple of footballers. Personally, it didn't really work for me. I have to say that it didn't really work with me. But I think I did initially 6 sessions with him, and it was just basically about obviously they're around the positive thinking. I certainly the time when I came into football was more around the fact is it's just get out and get on with it. Basically, when you know full well there's so much now from a mental point of view that all sorts of players would be going through, all sorts of participants would be going through. So I just decided, look, I'll take it upon myself to try to maybe adjust things in my own head, try to just put a bit of perspective on things as well, try to get a bit more relaxed and try to get the best out of myself. I felt as though it didn't necessarily work for me. I didn't. Now maybe it should have been something I should have stuck with long term over a number of years. Tried to maybe really go into it and try to adjust myself in a certain way long term.
Did the club know you were doing it, or did you?
No.
And did you tell anybody at the club at all?
No one at the club at all.
Right,
no.
wow.
I didn't say anything. It was just my own thing off my own bat. Yeah.
Right. Okay. Why did you feel you needed it?
I wasn't playing well. Didn't have a great relationship with the fans, and I think that was affecting me when I was going onto the pitch. You see, I'd gone in such a level where I'd gone from, say, Preston North End, where I was playing third division football or League 2 football as it is now, to Premier League football within the space of about 2 years.
Yeah.
I'd gone from probably being one of the most sought after players outside the Premier League during that time, and then I got to the Premier League. I think maybe international debut didn't quite go as well as I would have wanted. It took a while for me to become established. Then I started to feel comfortable playing international football, started to feel great, got the move to Sunderland, and everything had gone so quickly in an upward spiral, and I didn't particularly like living in Sunderland at the time, because I felt as though, and I've something that I've spoke about as well, where I feel as though that everyone wanted a piece of you the whole time. You felt as though you couldn't have your own space. You went out for a dinner, you went out for a coffee, went out for a beer, whatever you were doing, it just felt as though that everything was on top of you, and I wasn't maybe prepared for that. So I got maybe a year down the line, I wasn't playing well, and I just thought, I'm going to try and have a crack to try and change things. And
did you do other stuff as well as seeing a psychologist, or was it just that was like, I'm going to see...
Working on the training ground as well and things like that, trying to maybe work on your own individual, working working with one of the coaches, working on little things which might not necessarily have helped me, because you maybe are overthinking things. It's maybe then you're going to see a psychologist then to try to correct the things that you're actually thinking too much about, if you know what I mean. So it was one of those where you can't. I can get what Rory's saying, but when you start to say it openly, you start to think, well, I'm starting to think too much. I'm actually reading the chimp paradox and all that. Yeah. It starts to just maybe. I felt as though, for me, as I said, it didn't work, because I felt as though I was overthinking everything. Yeah. And it was only my last season at Sunderland when I actually felt as though I was showing some consistent form. We play well, we get relegated, so it kind of goes out the window anyway. So. There you go.
The last few people who've talked about the chimp paradox, Ronnie O'Sullivan, and there was somebody else. Team Sky have been using it as well. It's like, oh, sorry, and Brendan Rodgers at Liverpool just around the time of the slip.
Well, they had the what's the lad who?
Steve Peters.
Steve Peters. He was in at Liverpool working with them for a long time with Gerrard, wasn't he?
Well, pick somebody who's like, you know, working with Steph Curry and maybe Jordan Spieth. That's what I'd be looking for. Somebody who's just got a better track record, a recent track record. Not that, you know, it's bad or anything. Right, on to the Irish Times. Obviously, full page of Liverpool Club, the TV coverage, and the Sean Cox You'll Never Walk Alone banner that the Liverpool players used in front of their fans last night. And then the other side is the president welcoming Grand Slam heroes to Áras an Uachtaráin. It's Johnny Sexton and Laura, his wife, meeting Michael D. Higgins. And then tickets for the Ireland-New Zealand rugby match are going to break the €100 barrier. For Category 2 tickets are going to be 102 quid. Category 1 tickets 112 and premium 137. That's a €15 increase on 2016. Yeah, expensive tickets.
It is. It's something as well that's the same in football, isn't it, now as well?
You're not bringing the kids.
No, exactly. Being priced out of the market. Unless you're a wealthy family, you're going to struggle to maybe get the real grassroots or the working class man or woman. You're struggling to get a family there, aren't you? That's how it is.
And the thing about the November internationals is that it's actually generally easier to get tickets, because the corporate tickets for the Six Nations are booked up years in advance, effectively. Yeah. So that's a real pity that's happening there. And then a nice touch from Liverpool last night.
Yeah. I think we're certainly through the show last week, and we managed to get the GAA jersey over to Liverpool at the weekend, which it was a great touch on Liverpool that they put the Dunboyne GAA, wasn't it, out the weekend. So that was a nice touch, I think, at the weekend. Liverpool have done everything right around Sean Cox and the way that it's gone. I think we all wish him all the very best in his recovery.
Yeah, and so that's the front cover of the Examiner this morning for you, Sean. Liverpool pay classy tribute to Irish fan after booking Champions League final spot with Real Madrid. And then nervous Wenger wants the love story to end well. We'll talk a bit about Arsene Wenger's chances. It would be a remarkable victory if they managed to somehow beat Atletico, because they haven't got a point away from home in 2018.
Yeah, dreadful record. I was just looking at it all as well. I think Atletico's record, they've not conceded at home since December 2nd, I think it is. They've only conceded 4 goals at home all season. So Atletico at home traditionally were always great, weren't they? They lost to Chelsea this season, actually, in the Champions League.
They've just changed the stadium.
Into the new stadium, but now it's become... I think when Chelsea had beaten them early on this season in the Champions League, you were thinking, is it going to be the fortress that it was in the old ground at the Calderon, yeah. So, but now it is, and since the turn of the year, they've been outstanding. They're great defensively, but they've also got so much attacking talent in the side as well. And the chance was last week, I feel, with Atletico going out to 10 men so early. Yeah,
and they won the lead, and actually things looking great. Devin Toner and Michael D. Higgins, they just had to do it on the front of the Times Ireland edition. Devin Toner's wife, also very tall, because she's also towering over Michael D. Higgins. Most people do, I suppose, but. And that was close, but who cares? Is ultimately how Liverpool fans feel. It wasn't really a 4-2 Roma win last night.
No, I didn't think so. I personally didn't think so. I was in here with Kenny last night in Sherwood doing the show, and the goal probably came too late for Roma. Well, as I said before, there was seconds left in the game as well. I think Kenny said, there's 3 seconds left in the match. It actually turned out it was probably 2.
Yeah.
But it was just once the penalty had gone in, and I felt it was a soft penalty anyway. Roma caused Liverpool problems, yes, but Liverpool, I felt, caused their own problems with how they defended. They just looked a little bit too erratic to me.
Yeah, for sure. What papers have you got for us?
Yeah, well, again, it's the... We've got, obviously, everything dominated by Liverpool playing Real Madrid. We've not really touched on Real Madrid, I suppose, well, and how this final will go, but I suppose it will be something we'll be getting into more in depth as well. Joey Carbery story as well. This is something it's caught my attention over the last week or two as well. I heard you with Brian O'Driscoll last week, but he is ready to make his move to Ulster.
And that's the exclusive from the Herald from Des Berry. He's had a lot of Leinster exclusive just recently, so if he's writing it, you would expect that... Obviously, so we're given to understand a meeting happened between Joe Schmidt and Joey Carbery where Schmidt was going to lay out his plan to Carbery and try and convince him that this was the right thing to do. You know, as a Leinster supporter, I'd be very disappointed to see Joey Carbery go. I'm not entirely convinced that it is also the best thing for him on his career, and I'm also not entirely convinced that it's the best thing really for Ulster either, because the details in this story is that it's going to be a 1-year loan deal effectively.
Yeah.
So it's not a long-term solution.
Do you know what? Look, I heard you were talking around it last week, and the thing that sticks out to me as well, even from what Brian was saying, is look, and I think you asked him a question. It's right. Would you want to go coaching? You know, your chance to win trophies, play with better players. You're going to get better. You're going to develop off the back of that anyway. Now, if that ultimatum has probably been made to him, you're not necessarily going to be getting your Ireland chances unless you go and move, unless you go and take the chance. And yeah, it's great that everybody wants that you want to play. Of course, that's the ultimate for any rugby player, will be playing for Ireland. But I don't know. It's I wouldn't like to be told where I have to go. Yeah. I wouldn't like. Yeah, I'd want that decision to be about me, what I want, what's best for me. Where am I going to develop? Where am I going to get better? And financially and everything, probably long term, it might be the best move for him. But I don't know. It's particularly as well with the way that it's been at Ulster over the last few months as well. Is that going to be Is that going to be the environment that you're going to want to be stepping into?
So you go away for a year and somebody else steps into your place and they get really good, and then it's like, well, you weren't around and we had to progress, and this guy's come in and he can do all the things you can do, and actually he's probably going to be a bit cheaper now because he hasn't got all those Ireland caps that you have in the last year, so maybe you should just stay there.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know.
It's a difficult one once you make that loan move. You're saying, like, when you're on a short-term deal and you go somewhere to go back, even look at it, again, you're always trying to revert back to football teams, but you look at James Rodriguez of the night as well. He's on a loan at Bayern Munich. You know, when we're talking about the non-celebrations of the night, he is not going back to Real Madrid. Never. He's not going to play games at Real Madrid. No. And once you make that move and you step away from a big club, which of course Leinster are, it's difficult then to come back and fully establish. He may well do that, but that's the way that I'd feel.
So, like, Joe Schmidt's job is to win the World Cup. Joey Carbery's job is to have the best possible career Joey Carbery can have over the rest of his career. Like, is going to Ulster in the long run the best decision for him and for where he wants to go? Yeah. I don't know. Like,
no, exactly. And
you're leaving the best club in one of the best organised clubs in world sport, who have clearly got the best academy, who are always going to have the best young players coming through, who can regenerate really quickly after 2 seasons ago, 2.5 years ago, they had their worst European campaign of all time, and now they're the best team in Europe. Yeah. Like,
it's clearly in Joe Schmidt's best interest, isn't it? That's the thing.
Definitely,
and as you say, he is actually thinking of the World Cup next year. That's the thing that's, of course, in his mind. And that's then the ultimatum's been put to him. Look, you're risking your World Cup place if you don't make that move, and that's the difficulty, I think, isn't it? Yeah, for him.
There's no choice then.
Yeah,
like, it's okay. Well, I have to do this now for my country. I'm appealing to your patriotism as opposed to, no, this is definitely the best thing for you and for your career development. Because I haven't seen that case made properly yet, and maybe it is the best thing for his career.
There is something else as well I wanted to. We'll get on to certainly David Sneyd in a bit as well, which is in the Herald as well. It is around the Irish involvement this weekend in the Championship. Sean Maguire at Preston North End this weekend, and Kevin Long as well, who's just scored recently his first goal for Burnley. And you spoke there about the lack of goals from Irish players in the Premier League. So it's something we'll get into in a short while as well.
I totally ripped that off from David, by the way, so I don't want to get any credit for that.
Yeah. Yeah, well, you
Good
mentioned
comment
it.
here.
Yeah, you mentioned it. Yeah.
Ian Madigan to Munster in a World Cup year would be a perfect move. Experience, kicks his goals and has the flair, says Sam Leahy, hashtag OTB AM. Well, why not? Like, if there's money floating around and there's no tens, although Madigan just needs to prove that he's definitely a better option than Ian Keatley. That's the issue, really. How much of an upgrade is it?
Well, we've got in the mirror as well. Again, unreal. That's Liverpool, certainly with, again, dominating how it is as well. The Klopp heroes head for the final showdown with the Galacticos after dramatic Roma night. And of course, we mentioned before as well, Wenger vows a happy ending to his love story. So we'll see with the end. It'll be something we'll get into certainly in a while on Wenger and how it's going to go tonight. Again, it's another interesting one. What would happen as well if Arsenal were to lose tonight as well? Wenger's then got, what? Has he got 2 games left? Has he got 2 games to go? I was thinking maybe have 3, but I don't know. Yeah.
Then the last game was like away at one of the relegation strugglers.
He's going to have to see it through, isn't he? Now with it being 2 games, he'll see it through. But imagine the atmosphere around the Emirates for the last couple of games.
They have 3 games left. Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's midweek games next week. There's a lot of midweek games next week. So side just catching up on the fixtures that they've missed out on. Yeah. Again, the start, bring on Real. That's the other one. Again, the Sean Cox tribute as well. That's the headline there in the Star. This is the one as well that's caught my eye as well. Is it's a rush over Rashford. Man United are set to open contract talks with Marcus Rashford. The club are to hand the England Ace a bumper new deal. Still not signed a new deal. Apparently on 30 grand a week. That's what they say. 30 grand a week. Which again, what is he? Marcus Rashford 2021. It's a great deal for a young lad.
Yeah.
But when you look at the other stars at the club, the way that the wages have been driven so high, given the impression that Rashford has made over the last couple of years, he's still way behind a lot. If I'm using Jesse Lingard, for instance, as one. Jesse Lingard, when we spoke about that contract that he signed last year, 100 grand a week, he's way down the pecking order, I suppose, at the club. And I suppose at Man United, there is a hierarchy. You've got to try and get to certain levels, but that's the sort of level that he's at, Marcus Rashford, isn't he?
If you're Marcus Rashford's agent, you're like, these guys don't rate you. Let's just run your contract down 1 more season and then we'll go and get 20 million.
Does Mourinho fancy him? That's the other thing, Jay. Does he actually fancy him? It's the funny one, isn't it, as well with it? Yeah. Again, the Sean Cox banner there as well. Liverpool dominating. The other one as well. This is Marouane Fellaini with a Caris back. Marouane Fellaini claims Jamie Carragher as a pundit are irrelevant since his spitting shame. So what he's actually said was, how can someone like Jamie Carragher question me when he spat on a girl? So does he have a point? I don't know, but it's like
he does. He's got a point. He's got a point. Like,
I don't know. I mean, it's like it's when you're highlighting something like that as well that obviously Jamie Carragher was gutted with what happened and things like that. But yeah, there is
the old Letty was without sin cast the first time. Who amongst us hasn't went down the window and gobbed on a neighbour's car and then accidentally hit his daughter?
I know.
Who hasn't done that?
Again, in the Times, bring on Real. Liverpool survive Roma comeback to make the final. Sorry, that's the Guardian, should I say there? That is
nice finish from Sadio Mane early on.
That's the Mane finish. Yeah, great pitch there as well. Again, it was something that I spoke about earlier on. When Mane did score that goal, it was almost as if to me that is game over.
Yeah.
But it just didn't necessarily turn out that way. Yeah.
Just wanted to ask you about this. This is Sean O'Brien with Rovetta. There he is. There, look, Sean O'Brien on the screen with a lovely horse, Rovetta, part of Jesse Harrington's yard. That's a 4-year-old filly that he and his fellow Capel Street Syndicate members have leased. The filly will run for the new syndicate for the first time on the 16th of May at Punchestown. Didn't realise it was racing in Punchestown, 16th of May. So this is part of the Experience It campaign. Visit racehorseownership.ie to check and see if you have any interest in a horse. Ever own a horse? Ever own a leg of a horse?
I have, yeah. One or two, yeah. Nina Carbery just retired this weekend, actually. I had a share in a horse with a few of the Irish boys. She won on St. Devote that we had. We had him with Owen Griffin for a while, trains down in Waterford, so we had him for a while. Won as a race anyway, but just didn't quite kick on.
But that one day is enough for everybody.
It was. When Nina Carbery rode him, he was odds on, but still nice when you get that winner. Yeah, it's still that. And I actually I never got a chance to see him race. That was the thing. I've actually owned 2 horses in the past as well, but never had the chance to. It's just coincided with training days, with games and things like that. So I've never had the chance actually to go and see. Maybe now I've retired and further down the line.
Time.
If I can get involved, too expensive. That's what it is. Too expensive.
Yeah, but maybe Horse Racing Ireland can sort us out with an off-the-ball horse. I mean, come on, we can sort it out. Right, here's Kenny Cunningham and why Zinedine Zidane should drop Karim Benzema and also not start Gareth Bale against Liverpool.
They got away with it because I think just tactically how we set the team up. Like anytime I see Real Madrid play a little bit, he's got a conundrum there, Zidane. He always does high up the pitch. Ronaldo now plays as his number 9. He plays centrally.
Yeah.
You know, don't expect any work rate from male possession of the football. How do I get Benzema in the team? Benzema's getting to the age now almost, you've got to protect him. So he throws both of them up the pitch as essential strikers, which is great, but you don't get anything out of possession of football. Because of that, you're committed to 2 up front. Generally, he looks to a midfield 4, almost a diamond at times, which is great. You know, you got plenty midfield players in central areas of the pitch, but you leave yourself open down the sides. Yeah. And against teams like Liverpool in particular, when you visit the likes of Robertson and Alexander-Arnold in a final, flying forward, doubling up with Salah, Mane down, you can't afford to do that. So I'll be amazed if we don't see a tactical switch from Zidane. He's got to pay Liverpool the respect of shoring up those wide areas. And for me, that's almost a 4-5-1. Like they finished last night, he threw Asensio wide on the right, Bale on the left, and that midfield 3 played narrow. Modric, Kroos and Casemiro in the end. That's where they like to play narrow in those inside channels. When they don't play with that natural width, Modric gets dragged out into a wide right position. Kroos ends up tracking fullbacks down the others. That's not where they're at their best. So for me, it wouldn't surprise me if Madrid and Zidane in particular, and tactically, he makes some good decisions. He's very bright in terms of...
What would you look then? Say, obviously...
If I was Zidane shoes looking at Liverpool, I'd be straight away, it'd be 4-5-1.
Yeah.
And in the wide areas, I'd be looking for players with real kind of defensive discipline. They're going to do their defensive duties. So for me, it's a choice between Asensio, Vasquez or Isco and those 2 of those 3 players in the wide areas.
So you wouldn't play Bale? Bale, no?
No, Bale and Benzema for me out of the team, and Ronaldo up front. I trust the likes of Isco, Asensio, Vasquez to get up and down the pitch, double up with fullbacks. Marcelo in particular, because of the threat which Liverpool operate down the flanks. And not only that, they got the legs, Kev, to get up the pitch and get around Ronaldo as well.
Kenny Cunningham in his Sunday best for us in studio last night. David Sneyd is with us. Good morning to you.
Morning, Ger.
How are you?
I'm very well, very well.
You said that you were watching the game getting a little bit depressed last night because of the amount of goals that Liverpool scored in the Champions League.
Well, it was more so, last night you're looking at kind of, as it was ratcheting up and I'm thinking, Jesus, that's 10 goals. It was like 11 goals, 12 goals, 13 goals over two legs between Real and Roma. And then I'm thinking, many goals have Irish players scored in the Premier League this season?
What's the answer?
11.
11. Not our greatest season.
It's actually shaping up to be the worst ever. I think last year was 18, and top scorers were John Walters and Seamus Coleman.
Was it? Yeah.
Yeah, and then that's what really hit me kind of last night. It's the sort of a topic that's kind of been well covered in terms of since Robbie Keane has left and stuff, where the goals are going to come from. But I think last night, now I know that's the elite, that's the Champions League semi-final and stuff, but it sort of hammers home the kind of the dirt that's available to Martin.
Do you know the one thing? Aidan Fitzmaurice has wrote the piece I mentioned earlier on the last day promotion for the Championship, but I mentioned Kevin Long earlier on. So I think it's just the problems that we're continuously going to find as well, or going to find, is getting our lads into teams in the Premier League. Kevin Long, still relatively inexperienced at that level, he's 27 years of age. So this is the problem. He moved in in 2010, I think it was, from Cork City. Yeah. So how long has it taken him to get fully established? This is the problem.
Like I was reading it earlier this morning, and
he's one of those scorers as well, by the way. We've got to give him a mention there as well.
Actually, I think he was the most recent as well. But actually, interestingly, Shane Duffy, you would think Shane Duffy would have scored.
Yeah,
he hasn't, but I think he has the most clearances, so he's obviously decent at one box. But with Kevin, like I know, just extenuating circumstances, he had a couple of bad injuries and it's taken him a while. But it's interesting still to hear him say at 27 that he's getting used to playing at that level, and you're sort of thinking at 27, even if you've had a couple of injuries, you should be getting.
Yeah, there. I think he's saying. I think he probably doesn't want. I think sometimes you know when you're doing the interview, it's not so much a throwaway line, but he's actually just saying it as it feels. Look, I've not got the experience at this level. I am still kind of finding my feet to an extent. No matter what age you get to that level, you only need to look at Jamie Vardy, the age that he got when he got into Premier League level, the amount of goals that he's scoring consistently now. Sometimes you can be a little bit fazed by what's actually around the corner.
In fairness to him, he's got into that team this this year with Burnley. He's forced his way in, and he's now. I think he's.
It's harder to get out of that team sometimes. And like once you're in, you should be in for a while. It's obviously an off season is going to be interesting to see.
Yeah.
Jeff Hendrick is sort of, he's out now. He sort of hasn't played hasn't started a game for the last 5 matches.
Right.
Since the Turkey game.
He's gone a bit more positive. He's actually playing the two lads up front. So he's playing Ashley Barnes and Chris Wood, where Jeff Hendrick was playing as the more attacking midfielder, the extra one to try to get in support of attack. So he's fallen out. Yeah.
But as well with Kevin Long, I remember obviously it was a bit of a surprise when he got thrown in for his full debut against Austria. But I was over at Burnley at the start of the season, just chatting to John Walters, and he sort of, I was just chatting to him afterwards. He was saying, like, when he first training session, he was smashing through people in training, like winning everything in the air and looking really commanding and stuff. And he sort of, even though he's talking there about, as you say, maybe he's a bit of a throwaway line or it's promising. It's promising for next season.
Well, I think as well, certainly in relation to Kevin Long, probably about 4 years ago now, when I was completing my coaching badges, I did my coaching badges with Michael Duff, who's a Northern Irish international who played at Burnley, and he mentioned Kevin Long to me. He said, "Kev, this lad's a player." Right. He said he's going to have a big future. He made his debut, of course, his Premier League debut, and he did his cruise ship in his debut. So, you know, that's a massive setback when all of a sudden you get to that level. Was that about 3 years ago now? Was it, Dave? 2 or 3 years ago
First time
now?
they were up, wasn't it?
Yeah, first time they're up, you're right, yeah. So that's a setback then for another year or two. And as you say with Burnley, the way that he plays, if you get in that side, it's difficult to get out of it.
Yeah.
So he just sticks with what he knows, he sticks with personnel. That is the difficulty that he's found to get anywhere near it again.
There is a trend in world football too for centre-backs to be emerging a little bit later than they would have done a decade, 2 decades ago, because of the way that most training is not as contact-based as it used to be. It's very hard for players. Remember we did a piece on this a couple of years back, and there was just a general sense that there is a real dearth of quality centre-halves, and they're maturing much later, around the time 25 to 28. And probably they can go on a good bit longer with conditioning and whatever else that footballers are doing these days.
Well, you would hope that it's going to be the case with Kevin Long, considering he hasn't played that many games. You wonder how will the injuries affect him. You probably know yourself in terms of kind of getting over an injury, and he's had a couple of them as well. So it's kind of mentally to get back in. He's made of strong enough stuff, and you're talking about a lack of centre halves. You would hope then, like him and Shane Duffy for the next few years, you would think that's going to have the makings.
I think we've got a couple of campaigns out of them both at the very least. I think even Kieran Clark over the last few years, I think he's actually played well for Newcastle. So
he's out of the team now as well, though.
Yeah, exactly. He's not getting his game time.
When was the golden era of Irish players scoring in the Premier League? What's the peak? If this is the worst season of all time, not to put you on the spot.
Well,
now that's obviously there's one.
I'm not sure what I'm more impressed with there is.
There you go.
Oh, they were the days. That's when I could actually score a goal. You know, that's when I actually scored one or two half decent goals during the day. Yeah. Yeah, I don't even know. I don't even remember half.
That's
the goals.
your own fans.
Probably. That looks like Blackburn. That one actually. I don't know. You know what he said? Yeah. You forget them. They come and go very quickly, and you forget about it. It's only when someone actually shows you a few little YouTube clips, I suppose, as well. But
the caption on this one, and I'm not lying, is disbelieving Everton fans look on as Kevin Kilbane scores.
That was before I went. That was before I actually went to Everton there as well. Yeah, so it wouldn't necessarily been scored. That was the only goal I scored at the Gladys Street end, I think it was as well. The famous end there at Goodison. But I think in general, if I'm looking at it, the late 90s when I got into the Premier League, the amount of players that we would have had, even down to the likes of David Connolly that were in around Premier League clubs. I think he might have even been playing in Holland at the time, but certainly there were so many. Of course, Robbie Keane was about to make his move. Niall Quinn scoring consistently. We would have had so many players that were scattered throughout.
Well, that was it. It's always been like double figures. You've always been having lads scoring double figures, and that's one of the things. Even with this season, is I think there's only 9 scorers as well. And it's like Shane Long 2 goals, Jeff Hendrick 2 goals. Jeff Hendrick's last goal was in October.
Yeah.
Kieran Clark was up there as like one of the top scorers, and you're sort of thinking.
Do you know what you think you probably judge it as well on? The amount of players that we had playing Premier League football then that actually weren't getting in the Irish squad. If you're in the Premier League now, it's a given you're in the squad. That's the way that it is.
But that happened with the lad Obafemi at Southampton. As soon as he's kind of coming off the bench for a few minutes, you're sort of looking at it thinking, is he going to declare for us? Whereas 15 years ago, you're sort of like, well, he's got to prove himself a bit more, you know.
Yeah.
But it's interesting. Even in the Herald there as well about Sean Maguire. That's who you're sort of looking at. He's the one who, at the moment, is the great hope of actually progressing through. Because at every stage he's been in his career since he's come back from Ireland, to Ireland and then went back across, he's always sort of kind of met each kind of demand and met it, you know. He sort of kind of failed at Dundalk, wasn't getting in. Cork gave him that chance, he was going to walk away, and then he just buckled down really, gets the move over there, and even with his injury, he was there for what, three, four months, and he's still in double figures. So you're sort of hoping that, well, it's a mad, the last day of the championship is just crazy, it's brilliant, but you're just really hoping that if he can get into the Premier League, either with Preston or if it's next season or whatever, that he just keeps on rising up.
I think what he's done now, I mean, there's
the table. Just to briefly explain to everybody. So Preston are on 70 points, Derby are on 72 points. They're both playing teams who are battling relegation this weekend. It's Preston are playing Preston are playing Burton. Burton are on 41 points, but Barnsley are playing Derby and they're also on 41 points. So neither of those two teams have an easy last
a point for Derby's enough. You look at the goal difference, a point for Derby's enough. That's the thing. So Preston need Barnsley, who just say that's something that does go in the favour, that Barnsley need that win. At Derby though, it's unlikely. It is unlikely. But there is that outside chance for them as well. But just in relation to Sean as well, though, his goals to minutes ratio is outstanding. It's simply outstanding this season, and given his injury that you've spoken about. But the other thing about it is, I was actually talking to David Weir about it a few weeks ago, who's managed at Forest this season. He was actually mentioning Sean Maguire. Said, he's impressed me and how he's gone about things. But Preston now, I don't know what they paid Cork for him. Is it 150 grand? 100 grand?
Was it?
He's a £2 million player to Preston now. Something I spoke about now earlier on when Preston was signing a lot of the players. Alan Brown's another player that they signed from Cork City. He's a £1 million plus player. If you get the game time, our lads will continuously prove that they're good enough to actually make the step up. Preston has sat on now two massive assets to the club. Even if they weren't going to go to the Premier League, with Preston, which is unlikely, as I said before, they could go to a really good Championship club if necessary, that with a view to having a serious crack at getting back into the Premier League, and that's the thing.
It's kind of what you say about kind of young English managers, isn't it? That the only way they're going to get to the Premier League is by getting a team promoted. But you're sort of looking at Sean Maguire, and maybe we're coming from the point of view, obviously, bit close from over here. You see him at Cork, you saw him every week just banging in goals. But he's gone over there and he's scoring straight away. And he's had, surely the managers are looking at him thinking, this lad, if we want to get promoted and he stays fit, and barring that few months, and it was a bad hamstring injury at Cork, he was just playing constantly. That's one of the things the managers are going to look at, especially in that league, is players who can deal with playing as he Saturday Tuesday. So whether that might be kind of in the manager's heads now is debatable, but you would hope that he will get to the Premier League. And I know what you're saying, that even if they're playing for a high Championship team, that's going to be good enough now to get into the Orient squad if they're scoring goals. But you still want to see players get into the Premier League. And
I'm convinced it'll come again. I'm convinced that we are doing things right. I think our lads in the League of Ireland now are playing to such a level now that they're able to make that step up. I think fitness, diets, everything now is totally different. That we know how to look after our bodies more as youngsters, as players when you're coming into the game. But I think in general with a lot of the lads, I think it maybe it's the mindset. When you go over, it's almost that little bit of you're a bit daunted about going in. That is the case. No matter what anyone says, they go in. Some lads can go in and they can breeze it, but you only need to look at Daryl Hogan. You only need to look at Andy Boyle. For whatever reason, they're not making an impression. A manager changes as well, because the managers in the Championship, it's changing constantly. Simon Grayson leaves. He's signed 2 players. All of a sudden now, Alex Neil goes into Preston, and they just doesn't quite fancy him. And that's the luck, a little bit of luck that you need as well.
That pathway though is now very well worn. You go to England, you fail, you come home, you take a little bit of time to recover, you go again, and this time it's like, well, I'm going to make it.
You don't even need to fail now. You can actually have the pathway. We know there's a pathway here for the lads. That's the thing. So you don't necessarily need to get your head hell-bent on going over to England. Personally,
bred in. It's been bred into kids since they're God knows how long.
Personally, though, Dave, I think there would be a reluctance if my lad was playing now and there was a big push for him to go to England. Yes, of course, you'd want him to get the development and the coaching. But where is his career going to go if he goes into one of the top clubs? It's very, very. It's highly. What do we say the chances were of progressing through? I think it's 0.0034 or something. It's ridiculous stats that have actually going to make it through an academy system over in England. So there'd be a real reluctance on me.
Pictures here from the Rovers Bows game recently. So it's Graham Burke and Dylan Watson, that one.
Well, they're like at the moment they're two of the standout players in the league. Like Dylan Watson's come back. Well, so you started off at UCD, got signed by Leicester, and similarly he went over to Leicester, had a couple of injuries in the second season, and was basically told you need to go on loan somewhere. I think it was Dave Henderson managed to get him back at Bowes, one of the scouts there, who's now gone to Shells. Like he's been fantastic.
I saw the Rovers game the other week, and he was man of the match. He was brilliant, wasn't he?
Yeah, like he's just like we were chatting to Keith Long after. It's actually interesting. Like he lives on the same road as Keith Long. He's known him since he was like a kid and stuff. But like for someone who's that sort of, he looks light and he looks as if maybe he can be pushed off the ball. But he was fantastic. He was like he set up the goal for the equaliser. He was driving forward. He was nicking balls in front of the back four. Like he was you're sort of bred now, kind of told, well, there's either a defensive midfielder or a midfielder who goes forward. Whereas this lad was doing it all. And like obviously it's a Bowes and Rovers match. It was quite intense, but he actually backed it up. He scored against Derry. He done very well against Cork City as well. So you're hoping, I think there's reports there today as well in the other Sun that Millwall are looking at him as well. Yeah. But like you're looking at some of these lads, and like Graham Burke as well. Graham Burke's a prime example, someone who failed, went over to England, but he just didn't make it at Aston Villa. I don't think not making it at Aston Villa is failing. He went to Notts County, and by all accounts it was just the football didn't suit him. Yeah. It was Route 1, and you're not going to get the best out of it.
The other thing as well, saying obviously I've come up through the structure there, playing in every league over there in England. The perception of maybe clubs as well when you're signing a player from a Premier League club. We had David Beckham, of course, famously at Preston. We had numerous players at various clubs I've been at that come in. David Beckham actually was a success. He only played a few games. Went on to have a half decent career, David Beckham, as well as you. You both.
What's it now?
But the amount of lads that would have come in, if I'm looking at, for instance, I was at Coventry, lads came in there for Coventry from, I think we had one from Arsenal, Man United, and attitude was questioned immediately. Yeah. And that is the thing, it's almost as if there's a stigma attached around signing a loan player. You've got to go in and make an impression. It's not necessarily even in a game, you've got to make an impression in training. Yeah. You've got to show exactly what you're capable of doing all round in your very first training session, and managers are so quick to judge a player.
Players would as well. You wouldn't make a judgment on a player like that, wouldn't you?
And a lot of the Premier League clubs now, they're giving the players to lower league clubs, saying we'll pay the wages as long as they play. So there's pressure to play them, and if you're not playing them, it's kind of like, they're not for me, thanks very much, you're going back.
I think that seemed to be the bit of situation with Graham. He was at Notts County. It just wasn't working out for him at all. And like he came back and he was having sort of he was getting very frustrated with himself. He was getting angry at himself. He was having a bit of issues with that. He got sent off. He scored and got sent off in his debut, and he got sent off again against Pats. And it's one of these aspects with players who do come back, and you're sort of thinking, it's, as you were saying there, they probably have it in the head that they've been a failure.
Yeah.
Whereas
They've tried something.
Exactly. They've tried to make it, you know. And
it shows balls, that, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. But the thing with Graham is as well, and like fair play to Rovers as well. He's come back, and like they're trying to build a team around him. And like see, results haven't been great, but like he scored 9 goals in 15 games, and I think since Patrick McElhenney left, he's sort of taken over this mantle of scoring all these like kind of top class goals and
from midfield.
He sort of plays more in the hole, like similar to McElhenney. He sort of be the creative player, number 10 sort of thing. And like his goal the other night against Cork, it's just like he plucks it out of the air, does a little shimmy, gets past the midfielder, and then before you know it, right foot. He was actually quite honest. We were talking to him about him. We're like, well, what's your technique? Like, what do you do? And he just goes, just smash it.
Yeah.
And like sometimes you have to, like, that's fair enough. Obviously in the box it's a bit different, but outside the box just smash it.
Yeah.
So, but he's just that's one of the really promising things with Graham this season is that he's built on last season. You can see that he's actually learned a bit from last year, because like some of the stuff he was doing last year was a bit ridiculous.
Can Rovers keep these players, or like is that the difficulty here, that they invest the time? You know, they're working on making sure that they're keeping their educations and all that kind of stuff as well, and they get to a level and then they sell them. I think that's going to be Rovers' model for the future. Like, and so the business model is to put them on slightly longer term contracts and get more than 150 grand, or a share of whatever they get the next year.
We need to be, I feel there's always something that we all felt for a long time, that the League of Ireland clubs are getting a raw deal from the transfer fees without a shadow of a doubt. They are.
But the Dundalk lads, like they lost Boyle, Horgan, Richie Towell, Hubin the first time. Who else has gone? Dal Horgan mentioned. Like, they all went for nothing. These are lads who played most of them played in the Europa League. Yeah. You know, it's just
no-brainer for clubs to sign them.
And I suppose Dundalk now are in the position, and even Cork, where they can give these slightly longer. Cork now have gone to giving contracts for the full year. You know, it seems like a novelty, and we shouldn't really still be talking about that as something that's a positive, that a club is giving a player a contract for the 365 days a year. But
it's so risky though, because we've seen clubs give players contracts and then suddenly not be able to pay them because the market.
Yeah, but I think that was at a point where maybe the wages were too high. And now it's a bit more common sense that's going about it. And even with on the opposite kind of side on the scale, to say someone like Graham Burke who's come back and with Rovers with a model like the lad Aaron Bulger like this week, like he was fantastic in the first half against Cork. You know, he's coming up against Gerald Morrissey and Conor McCormack, and he's like 18 years old, like he's getting the ball. He's just always, you'll know, this is midfield.
He looks great, doesn't he?
But that's it. Like, he's small, but if you actually up close to him, he's like he's hard, like, you know.
Yeah.
And I've seen the quote from like Stephen Bradley was great. Kind of probably too early in the morning to word for word, but he's a nasty little effer, you know. Yeah. And he is, and you want to see that, but it's not just that about him, you know. He's kind of, ball comes to him and he knows whether to play a first time, play where he's coming from or to turn. He doesn't even, he can hear sometimes the calls, and sometimes he's not getting a call from the defender of what to do when he's getting the ball back. He knows. At 18 years of age, I know it seems like a simple thing for someone to know what they're doing when they get the ball, but a lot of times you can take a touch and he's getting smashed straight away, whereas he just knows what he's
the new John Giles, basically.
That's it. There's no pressure. Like, he's actually going to score 20 goals in the Premier League next season as well. When
I would say
all our problems.
It's something I would have heard of. You know, a friend of mine, John Fallon over here. You know John. You know young John, I suppose. Well, but John, his dad, he's someone that's scouted over in England for a long time. Really likes him. Told me about him for a while, but. It is again. Is it the right time? Is it still probably best for him to stay here for another year or two? And all of a sudden he gets to 20, 21.
You think it would be like I know at the moment he's doing his leaving cert through again. This is Rovers looking to the future a little bit, and they're getting a lot of grief because of what's happening with the first team at the moment, and that's fair enough. But like, he's in with another couple of lads from the 17s and the 19s, well, not 17s, doing their leaving cert with a private school in Dublin, you know. But he needs to stay really for another couple of years, because Rovers, you would think, will still play European football if he's going to get that experience. You wonder, is he quite good enough at the moment to go straight into, say, a Championship team or a Premier League team? If that's what you're looking at. Is he going to be one of them who'll go over and then get lost and then come back, or just have a bit of patience? Like you mentioned earlier on about defenders maybe peaking at, say, 27 and 28 and getting careers being prolonged. Like, there's no rush at the moment for him. Like, he's still only a kid, and you would hope that it'll be progressive.
First team football now, a year and a half first team football now versus a year and a half sitting playing whatever those meaningless under 23 games are. Like the Guardiola kind of scoffs at, even though they've invested hundreds of millions in that team.
And the talent that's within the academy there. I don't know if I'd said to you, I went to watch England under 18s against Argentina last month. The standard is just off the scale, and these lads are getting nowhere near Man City, Chelsea's first team. There's a lot scattered around. There's a couple of lads at Middlesbrough, I think, within that. I think there's one lad at Villa, actually the goalkeeper's at Fleetwood. But they will be nowhere near the first teams at any of those bigger clubs. But the talent that they have is just remarkable. Whatever the FA have been doing over the last 10 years, they've certainly getting it right at youth level.
Is the goalkeeper playing for Fleetwood first team?
He's played, I think, the first team. He wouldn't be regular, but he was the first player to represent England who's played for Fleetwood, who's come through the system there.
That's pretty amazing. The level of scouting that they're doing is
it sort of goes back to what you were saying there about the talent, as you mentioned earlier. But if you're playing these games that, like, you're probably finishing 5-4 or 4-3 and stuff. Yeah. Like, what does it really? What are they really gaining from it in terms of becoming a professional? Yeah, I think did Chelsea just win the FA Cup? I think they did. They did. So that's I think that's 5 on the bounce for Chelsea. Chelsea is so dominant, so dominant because of the wages they're paying. There's lads on $1 million a year that's within that academy, plus that's within that youth team.
Really good news for Watford and the other teams that those players are all
exactly.
Right, so I just want to play you this. We obviously have a weekly League of Ireland podcast here on Off the Ball. Here's news of now former Athlone manager Aaron Callaghan quitting his job almost live on the Off the Ball League of Ireland podcast.
We do have some breaking news. It is now 4:15 on Wednesday afternoon when we're recording our podcast. I got a WhatsApp a little while ago from Aaron Callaghan, and it reads, Janie, I'm gone from Athlone. Here is my comment. Thank you. So Aaron Callaghan has resigned as the Athlone Town AFC manager. He's given us an exclusive here on Off the Ball. We're the only media outlet who Aaron has spoken to. And he said, changing a football club's culture is one of the most difficult leadership challenges a manager incurs. That's because the club structure comprises of interlocking set of goals, roles, processes, values, communications, practices, attitudes and behaviours. To raise the bar in any industry, you need to set professional standards and evolve with the competition. Somehow this message never landed. The players and staff have my utmost respect and I wish them every success. We tried to get Aaron on the show and he's unavailable to speak to us this week. He did go on to say that the last straw was on Monday night when there was no warm-up gear and no physio. So that was the game, of course, in the Leinster Senior Cup. No warm-up gear and no physio. So there you go, Athlone Town. If you want to do well, if you want to have good players and a good manager, you need to treat them properly. The results this season, if I can find the First Division table, which I'll do very quickly here, just to have a little look at Athlone's results so far. Athlone Town, bottom of the table, 9 matches played, 0 wins, 1 draw, 8 defeats, 6 goals scored, 39 goals conceded. My question to Athlone Town is, who are you going to get as your new manager who will want to work in that environment with little or no support from board level, it seems? Unfortunately, the playing staff are quite young. They're trying their best. The coaching staff are trying their best, but they need more. They had no bus as well recently when they were hammered down in Wexford. The players and staff drove themselves to the match. There was no bus available. So, if that's the attitude, unfortunately, Athlone Town, the way is only down for you.
Maybe Roddy will come back, will he?
He's already been there.
Again, though.
Yeah, well, I don't think even Roddy will come back for that. No, it's actually quite sad what's happened on Athlone. Like, for kind of quite famous and vaunted League of Ireland club. And see Jamie there, you heard the stats there. It's just
not great.
It's not great, and it's gone past the point of even like kind of not that you would laugh at it, but like it's actually quite sad. I was actually there last year when obviously the situation was happening with the match fixing scandal when that was kicking off, and I was going up, and it's actually a half decent ground up there, you know. But it's just a club that's just been slowly dying, unfortunately, and I don't see any way I just don't see what's going to happen, because I was again just been reading up on stuff for the last few weeks on what's going on there, and just people have like not just fallen out of love with it, they just don't want to get involved, like businesses up there and stuff. It's just and that's what you need up there, and especially like, but it's just falling apart, unfortunately.
You're talking about the way that Rovers are building for the future, and the criticism that the team have shifted at the top end. You definitely are hearing stories about them encouraging kids to continue with their education and to be better human beings, and to just kind of, we're going to look after your kids properly.
Yeah, like stuff like that's going to get scoffed at, isn't it? Because like, I remember Man City once coming out saying they wanted a more holistic approach, you know, and it's understandable. Like, Rovers are a big club, and the first team are always going to be the ones that are going to get judged. Like, fans are going to want to see what's happening with the first team, you know, but at the same time, sometimes you need to look to the future a little bit. You need to try something different. And it's not just Rovers are saying this and kind of having these little kind of sound bites here and there. They're actually putting like the structures for it in place. They're not the only ones. Like, there's other clubs who are going to be who will do the same. Like,
but there are clubs putting pressure on players as well not to continue their education.
Well, yeah. Like, I wrote it in my column a couple of weeks ago. So like, there was one League of Ireland player, only a young lad, he's coming through and he's in college now. It's not one of the colleges that's actually the link up with the club, but he's on a scholarship in college, and he's getting offered €100 a week and being told, well, yeah, but you can't play for your college. And then he's saying, all right, that's fair enough, not realising that he'd lose a scholarship. And it was only when the parents get involved and people realise what's going on, and eventually it came to a kind of an agreement that he could play for his college and stuff. But that's another aspect where clubs are right to have these links. I know, kind of like, you've got DIT with kind of up in Dundalk, Institute of Technology, with Dundalk, like UCC sponsor Cork City, like Pats have a link with McNaughton and stuff. And if clubs are going to be kind of espousing this kind of way to go, it needs to be real. Like, it can't just be something that they say to parents. Well,
it's a difficulty. The clubs, of course, they're going to want the players. They're going to want to get as much time with them, training ground and on the pitch, but the responsibility, you feel as though even for the clubs as well, has to come with the player themselves. They have to look out for what's best for him. Is it unlikely that this player is going to make a career out of playing football? That is ultimately the thing. It's got to be the best interest, and ultimately
the vast majority of players
it's unlikely that they will actually make a living for themselves, and that's the way that it is.
And so at some point, the clubs who recognise that are going to probably be able to access better players if they say, look, come with us, we'll help you develop your career simultaneously, and we'll prepare you for life after football. Like, it's still a competitive advantage, I would say, if you were one of the clubs to go, we'll make you more likely to be able to get a job at the end of this. Here's a bunch of our former players who we helped, or here's a bunch of former players who we didn't help.
I think there's still that
in the past.
mentality, even though from the youngster, from the player themselves, it's like,
I'm going to make it.
I'm going to make it. And you have to have that drive.
Well, this is it. It's how do you, it is a balancing act, and you've hit the nail on the head. Like, players aren't going to want to say, well, of course I'm going to make it. Why do I need to go to college? Like, there's always going to be
My answer to that is always, when you're really rich, you're going to need to know how to spend it and how to tell the lads who are just trying to steal your money from the ones who are actually going to make you richer. Go to college and learn how that happens. That's it. Like,
no, it's true. It is true. But then it's catch-22. How on earth are you going to actually focus on that part of it when you think, I've got to be fully focused, I've got to try and live my life in a certain way, be professional, do this, have a certain set routine that you're going to actually work with in a standard week, and how can everything else fit in with that?
And part of the issue as well would be, say if you're kind of working this with lads who maybe come back from England, like a lot of these lads haven't even got their juniors cert.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? This is the issue. It's not as if like they've even got their leaving, and like education,
it fell by the wayside really quickly.
Yeah, so like trying to convince these lads, the way to do it is similar with trying to get supporters, is you do it at a younger age. So the way with Rovers, with the link up with a secondary school and bringing the lads through the academy, that's where you're going to get these lads to stay involved with education. The ones coming back, you might get a few of them, but it's going to be quite difficult to actually.
More difficult for sure. David, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us today. Now, just want to move on to this from the weekend. Hector Hilkegon was on the Sunday newspaper review with Joe. He's sick of all the negative commentary surrounding the GAA. Have a look.
Yeah, there's so much waffle written about, and why is there so much controversy about the great game? Why aren't they writing about Fela, the thousands of kids that are in Fela? We always love the negativity about the GAA, and we write about it all the time. Like, I'm training lads in under 14. We won a county Fela Division 1 at the weekend, and there's so much good stuff happening at club level, but there's so much politics in the hierarchy of the GAA and club fixtures, and the club is being not shunned, and then the players have their own. I just think it's incredible. Do we love talking about it more than the weather and writing about it?
I think so.
Mental.
There are so many issues. I mean, there are so many issues to talk about, and that's before you get into.
Why is it so that
to broadcasting and championship structures, which no doubt are next in line? And
I'm not talking about it ever again.
Here is the motion now. The next motion is motion 765, caption A. All those for hands in favour. And what I see at the weekends, and when I'm working with young lads in Claregalway and Galway, is, and obviously I'm bringing the Meadness to Galway, to my club, but I'm seeing the running off the shoulder, the third man run, the hand pass, lads taking lovely scores at 14 years of age where they're curling the ball over the bar with the side of the foot. Football played beautifully, like Mikey Sheehy used to play it, or any of the great players, or Trevor Giles, or any of those great, or football the way it should be played. There should be, I don't know, I just think we love writing about it and talking about it. And I know you write about it very well, by the way, but these two boys, they're like the two boys out of the Muppets, aren't they?
Statler and Waldorf.
The two boys.
There is a lot of relevant points to it.
Yeah, I think they do, to be fair.
Yeah. They do. I enjoy their pieces. I do enjoy their pieces, but there's so much written about the GAA.
Yeah, Statler and Waldorf, Brawley and Colin O'Rourke, just in case you weren't sure who Hector was talking about there. there's no duo in the world that you can't reduce to ridicule like Statler and Waldorf.
Always the way, isn't it?
Yeah. Is that a story you wanted to tell on air about the guy from Preston or not?
Oh no! I do you know what, his name's just lost. I've just lost his name. I've got his number in my phone there, but yeah, just in relation to young kids going over, there's a lad that's just signed. I think it was with St Kevin's actually. Just signed for Preston now in the last month or two, so he'll be going over in June. 16, I think he is. Yeah. So again, it's going over. I mean, Preston are giving lads. We know that Preston have given lads a chance. Preston have got lads within the system now that 16, 17, young lad from Cork who they have there in the moment as well. So they're giving lads chances, but it's difficult. It's difficult again, and it's about that balance that we spoke about there. Continuing your education, which they will do. Clubs are doing that anyway now over in England. You certainly have to continue with your education side of it, but it's difficult to get it right.
Yeah. Football definitely needs to get better at that, because it spits people out and doesn't really care about them afterwards. And like the PFA, it's not really their job to look after the players who don't make it, because they're already busy enough looking after the players who have made it.
Yeah.
I don't know. You definitely would think that, like.
Well, I mean, I said to you as well, and again, you know, the PFA does get a lot of stick, but even for my brother was only a pro for 2 years, made I think it was 2 league appearances over in England, had a career non-league. And my brother's finished. He's had a knee operation that's been paid for and funded by the PFA. He's had his teeth done because he was a bit of a different type of player for me. Where he'd actually feel as though he'd take a lot of heart from actually going up and headbutting someone in the back of the head. And so he's had his teeth smashed out and everything. But he's had his teeth fixed, honestly. And they do get a lot of stick, but from a personal point of view and from what even they've done for my brother Farrell, you know, we've had support, so that's all I can judge it on.
Yeah, fair enough. Okay, let's move on. Galway Mayo, obviously.
Brian McManus, there you go. I know it. There you go. Brian McManus is his name, yeah. And I knew it was McManus. So, yeah, you know, I said I met him on the plane. He was in his Preston tracksuit. We had a brief conversation, and yeah, you look to him, and hopefully he'll go on and have a great career, and he'll play for Preston.
Preston seems like a good place to go.
Yeah, and hopefully play for Ireland one day. So that's the hope for him.
All right. Galway Mayo is still over a week away, but will Lee Keegan be fit for it? Here's the Mayo manager, Stephen Rochford, talking about how he's doing.
Yeah, personally he's doing great, you know. Shoulder isn't doing as well as we'd all like it to be. Look, he had it's only 6 weeks ago since he had a procedure. You know, he's back doing his bits of running and doing a bit of skill work, but you know, he's not up to anywhere near contact yet. So you know, hopefully we give him reason to be part of a Connacht Championship game, but you know, it won't be against Galway.
And you would think that, we'll say, if you were to come through Galway down the line, a comeback will be inside the Connacht final time frame.
Again, you know, you have to wait and see, and it really is week by week. But I think, you know, if you look at the Robbie Henshaw element with his shoulder, I think it was 10 weeks.
Just over 8, actually.
You know,
yeah.
Is it just over 8? You know, better again. You know,
I'm getting excited now.
So yeah, could we push out the Galway game by a week? But you know, I think. In that context, I think even from hearing commentary that was a bit of surprise. You know, how far he was pushed, or you know, the ability in relation to be able to get him back. So really, we're going to take it game by game from our own performance point of view, and then the byproduct of that is that, you know, if we can keep pushing through and into a kind of final, I'd be hopeful that in and around that time that Lee could partake.
You don't be rushing them back.
No.
It's a long out season. The Super 8 is the most important thing, and
particularly the nature of the injury as well, isn't it?
Yeah, hell or high water, they're going to be in the Super 8s, right? Like, it would be a complete disaster. I can see them getting beaten against Galway and farting their way through and then roaring into the Super 8s.
Well, we'll see. I'd rather get the Galway game
straight through the front door.
Yeah,
I get that. I do understand.
Of course. But yeah, I think the way that Galway played in the league and how strong they're looking, it's going to be a difficult one. But looking at Keegan, yeah, I think he has an amazing desire and to get himself right, and I think it's always that thing in people's mind is how well he recovered from it was the Achilles injury, wasn't it, that he had? How well he recovered from that to get himself back in, because I couldn't believe how he was back so quickly to actually play in the league. Yeah. That was a thing that was in my head there. So yeah, if there's any sort of doubt, they won't risk him. Of course they won't risk him. If there's any sort of doubt, if he says he's fine, the thing is as well, he's so strong mentally. Yeah. That is the thing with him, that he might actually go and play and he could do himself more damage. That is the thing. But yeah, I think they'll be safe with him anyway. But we need him later on in the season. That'll be the one, Jay. Yeah.
How worried as a Mayo fan are you about this Galway game? Like, because it seems to me like so much is being invested in this. I'd be more of look, we'll win or lose, doesn't really matter. The championship, it really starts much later for us, and we understand that. Yeah, especially this Mayo team.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, it's more important.
Well, exactly. We know how it's gone over the last few years. That it's been, you have to go over the better over them in the Connacht Championship. It's the way that it's been over the last while. But hey, I don't know. I think this is a bit different. There's a bit of spice around the game as well. There's real anticipation. There'll be a full house, packed house over there in Castlebar. I'm actually gutted I can't make it because I was due to go as well, and I can't get over for it. So that's the one thing that I'm gutted with, because it's the last weekend of the Premier League season, and I have to work, officially have to work. So I'm missing it. But no, I am worried though. Yeah, of course, I am worried for it because it.
But even if they lose, like, we know this Mayo team, we know their character, we know they're going to come back.
Yeah, but how difficult will it be to keep doing that? That's the thing. I personally, I'm with you. Regardless of the result. I think yes, they'll still be strong enough, and they'll still be well on into the summer, and hopefully it'll be another All Ireland final. That's the way that you're looking at it. But in general, it makes it more difficult, doesn't it? It does make it more difficult. Less time in the training ground, less time actually getting prepared for.
Then maybe they need less time in the training ground. Maybe this is the team.
Yeah,
we've worked out that they need games. More games equals better.
Personally, and I said it last year as well. The more game time that you've got, the better you actually feel physically anyway. That's the way that it is. But I think I don't know. Sometimes I think you just want it for your heart. You just want to maybe have a bit more of a relaxing time.
Straightforward line.
Yeah, just do it normal. Let's do it the normal way, please. That's the way. But that's not the Mayo way, is it?
Tyrone Cathal Corey is Sligo's new manager. It's his very first year in charge as an inter-county manager. Sligo face a treacherous trip to London this weekend. Neil Tracy caught up with him earlier this week.
Definitely, we have to look forward. It's that time of the year. We've come through the winter, we've come through the FBD, we've come through the National League, and now this is the big game, the Championship game. Tough game going to Ruislip in London. We know all about London, we know how well they're set up, so it's going to be a tough day for us.
And on a personal level, are you looking forward to it? Obviously this is your first inter-county job, and now your first inter-county championship match.
Probably it's in there somewhere, but at the minute we're just totally focused on getting the fellas prepared, for London. It's a big day for me, surely to God, but it's Sligo's day. It's not about me, it's just about us trying to make sure that we get all the boxes ticked now and make sure that everything's right whenever we get the balls through on Sunday.
You're a Tyrone man yourself. What was it that drew you to Sligo?
I suppose I've always been managing teams, and I managed teams in Tyrone and Monaghan and Derry, Donegal, and I had went for the Donegal management job, and then Declan Boner had gotten that, and then I just got a phone call from Sligo, so I went down and met with the Sligo committee, and we had a chat with them and ended up managing Sligo.
And you're half a season into it now. How have you found it? Has it been much different to a club gig?
It has been. I've learned a lot. Like, geez, what I've learned this last lot of months has been a lot. But again, you get to meet the players, and they're real down to earth, good lads, no egos. It's like managing a more organised club team. At the end of the day, it's the same game, and it's the fellas in Sligo are brilliant. They're committed. They travel up from Dublin, from Mayo, from Galway, from schools in Limerick and Athlone to train in Sligo 3 times a week. Like, the commitment to put in is fierce, and nobody ever misses training, and they're just absolute pleasure to manage.
And how are you set? London, they've given Sligo a shock a few years ago. You're obviously hoping it's not going to happen again.
We have to prepare for London. We know their management, some of their management work in professional soccer teams and stuff like that there. We know that they've took a lot of professionalism till the London setup. London's confident. They had a great National League. They have some great players. They're well set up defensively. I would know a few players from the north, the Tyrone lads, the Monaghan lads, and then and they're up front. They're dangerous forwards, and we're aware of them. They've great free takers, and we know this is going to be a big day for us. Probably the thing that we're worried about is that we're asking fellas to leave Sligo, travel, fly over, around airports, into an hotel, into a strange bed, and it's just guarding against them losing their focus. We try to get them into the dressing room and get them focused for the game. And
is that where you really have to come in and actually manage the situation? And it's not just picking a team for a game, but you have to keep the guys under control. You have to kind of make sure they're nice and calm in an airport. They're not getting too excited or wild or nervous or anything like that, or there aren't too many distractions.
Well, they are. Funny enough, they are a wild, calm bunch of lads. And and I don't think it's going to be a big problem. But it's just making sure that it's given 23 degrees. It's going to be warm. It's just making sure we get all the water, get the food right, just getting all them wee things right that makes the difference.
Have you set a target in terms of championship for your first season?
We haven't looked 1 second past the throw in Ruislip. We know London, we've looked at them. They've had a massive win there 2 weeks ago against Offaly, put up a big score. We know that they're going to be dangers. We know all the stuff that they bring to us. So it's like we can't look past Ruislip at all. So getting over to London, getting the ball through in, and then we'll see as the game unfolds where we're at. We've a few new players in too. They have never experienced this environment before, so it's just guarding against all that. But London's a big task for us.
Yeah, that's not then just saying that there's a good chance that Sligo get beaten by London.
Sligo favourites going into the game though. Yeah.
You should actually look that up.
Yeah.
Then,
Well, I think I've never actually been to one of the championship games at Risley, but apparently it's some buzz around the game. And I'd love to hopefully the next few years I'll get the chance to get over to one of the games. But apparently the buzz around the games, it's just great. So and there's a lot of pressure on Sligo going into the game, isn't there? That's the thing. You're looking
Sligo
at
11-4 on, London 11-4.
Yeah, that's it. Does that say it all?
That's like in GAA. That's about a 2-point spread, probably 3-point spread.
Yeah, that's of course going in the experience.
3-point spread. That's not much. Like that's like a kick of a ball between them, really.
Yeah. Well, that's a difficult one. So you're looking for the value then in London? Is that what it is then? Yeah, you're looking for the value bet there. I don't know, but no, I think the lads going over. It's your mindset you got to get right. That's the thing, isn't it? And hopefully you look to get that great start well, that you can actually then get through the game and manage the game well. But if you're under pressure early,
he was talking about the temperature's going to be high. You need to get your food and nutrition right. And there's a famous interview from the last time Sligo were over in London where one of their players was interviewed before it, and he listed off all the things that were playing on their minds, and it was like, you know, you've got the plane on the way over, you've got the traffic in London, and it just sounded like they talked themselves into this.
Built it up.
And sure, lo and behold, didn't they go and London did them.
Yeah.
And I thought it was New York nearly caught Sligo. London did beat Sligo. Yeah, London beat them in 2013. London drew Mayo as well. It was one of James Horan's years. Went to extra time.
Yeah, I do remember that too.
I don't know. I'm talking myself into this London. The New York thing, obviously we had Johnny Ward in with us. He says that he's on his way over. Can't wait to tell the immigration man why he's going over. What's the purpose of your visit? Well, I've waded in on the London footballers.
On the New York footballers, yeah.
New York footballers at a big price.
Yeah, it'd be... again, there's pressure on Leeds from going over, isn't there, as well? And
that's not an easy...
No, it isn't. And that's it's what you build it up to be. It is, you know, the journey over, the pressure you're putting on the flight, then you land and you're thinking about it. You can overthink too much. You can overthink things far too much.
That jet lag as bad as I feel it is?
Yeah, of course it is.
How do I cure that? Do I take a sleeping tablet? I fail a drugs test.
Yeah, that's it. Oh, am I tired in the morning then? Do I have a coffee? No, do I not have a coffee? Do I take a Pro Plus tablet? It's like oh, what am I doing? It is. We're fragile minds. I tell you, we've got fragile minds. Yeah.
Nothing but water. Right, so here's the second one. So Carl Corey actually was asked about, this is an interesting question about whether or not you'd be in favour of a B Championship, and this is the first time we've heard anybody really come out and say it in these terms. Have a look.
You know, everybody starts out on the level playing field in the Championship, and everybody wants to play the one Championship. To me, personally, I think it is a good idea. I think if both of them was played in All-Ireland Sunday, you know, your B final was played before the seniors, I think it would be great. I think it would be great for supporters to get to follow their team. You know, like the GAA and teams, they do a lot of training, so many training sessions for so few matches, and I do think if there was a B competition there, it keeps teams alive in the Championship. It gets supporters out to support their team for that wee bit longer. I think it would be great to have the B thing, but at the minute it's just London's all we're focusing on it in Sligo. We just want to get over there and give a good account of ourselves.
Carl, thanks for talking to us on Off the Ball, and very best of luck for the Championship.
Thanks very much, thank you.
Yeah, so he's in favour of a B Championship. My solution is
what do you think?
My solution is that the league is 4 divisions, but the winners of Division 4 get into the All-Ireland quarter-final, winners of Division 3 get into the quarter-final, top 2 in Division 2 quarter-finals, top 4 from the first division get into the quarter-finals. You can get promotion and relegation. So you're in the same championship, and if you have an amazing year in Division 4 and you're a really good team, you can come on a run, and you're never going to win a quarter-final, semi-final and a final, really, because it's just not going to happen. But at least you get the opportunity to have a big game at the end of the year. It's meaningful. I don't know. Because I think a B Championship, the players keep saying they won't play in it. And if someone keeps telling you as a group, no, and they prove by every time the team goes out, they feck off to the States to earn some money playing football. Like, that's always going to happen unless you have a reason for them to stay, and it's hard to make those reasons up.
It is, yeah. It's a great point, isn't it? That, yeah, it is. Again, I suppose it's about what's best for you as well. You say you're thinking of career-wise as well, off the back of it, isn't it?
And when you're in your early 20s, you're thinking, I had a long dark winter.
Yeah,
it's been shit. We just got knocked out of the championship. Now I got to go and play this B Championship.
Yeah,
I'm going to America on a J1.
Yeah, Well, exactly. That's the way to do it, isn't it? That is the way to do it. In general, it is. That's what all your mates are doing. That's what your friends are doing. That's what everyone around you is doing.
It's also the best thing for you.
Yeah,
a little bit of travel broadens the line.
It is. But it's a great time of the year, though, isn't it? For that, time of the year when you've got that anticipation when the championship's about to start. Isn't it? Great.
When most teams believe that they have the chance of doing something remarkable, or at least about 4 teams. Right, Kev, great stuff. Thanks very much.
Good man. Cheers, Jay.
We've got one more brilliant piece of content coming your way, which I'll tell you about in a second. Tomorrow, though, on Off the Ball AM, Adrian's in with Rishtar Cooper. Former Connacht lock Andrew Brown is going to talk to us about retirement and working under Pat Lam and Kieran Keane. Alan O'Mara is going to join us from New York. He's bringing us interviews with some of their stars ahead of this weekend. He was due to be playing, actually, but unfortunately he's done his cruise shit in the build-up to that game as well. That and loads more as well. Accrington Stanley owner Andy Holt is going to talk to Keith Andrews on the Keith Andrews show today about their rise from being a punchline in a milk ad in the 80s to a team who are now
Great story.
League One Championship.
Just been promoted. No, been promoted to League One. First ever time been out of that league. Yeah,
that's pretty amazing. It's live today from 12:30. Keith is going to be joined by Joe in studio today. Now to play out today. This is a remarkable mini documentary about the life and times of Shane McNaughton. A little while ago, we sent Shane Stapleton up to the Green Glens of Antrim to catch up with the McNaughtons. We brought you the piece yesterday with Terence, who is the legendary Da and hurler, a member of the '89 team, a former Antrim manager, and one of the iconic figures really in Antrim hurling history. You can catch that on youtube.com/off the ball, but his son's story is also remarkable. Have a look.
I sat alone and sit still breathing. I see a face that's not my own. A voice of 100 men, but not my own. A smile that goes as easy as it comes. A heart still beating, but not yet my own. A wandering look too simple to conceive. The truth as vacant as the air I breathe.
Name?
Shane McNaughton. I am an actor from Cushendall in County Antrim. 6 years old. She will never go to her first concert. She will never have a favourite film. She will never know what it feels like to hold her child in her arms for the first time. To know you don't know how I feel.
Growing up in Cushendall, your father was a legend of Antrim GAA, Sambo McNaughton.
So he says.
Surely the ambition for you growing up was to be a great hurler?
Definitely, it was growing up. I still have them aspirations on certain days. No, I mean, coming from the Glens of Antrim, that's all we really have down here is hurling, and it's ingrained in us in a very early age. So, I mean, myself and Neil McManus and that, we've played from we were under 10s, right up into playing for Antrim.
And at what age did you give up hurling for Antrim?
I think it was 26, 27. I got an operation on my hip, which kind of gave me a bit of time, which I spent getting back into acting, auditioning and going to classes again. So yeah, I was about 26.
So that was maybe 2014, 15?
2014, I think it was, yeah.
And how much did you enjoy hurling with Antrim?
I loved hurling with Antrim. In the early days I loved hurling with Antrim, but the more the injuries I had in my hip and stuff, it started to become a bit of a chore for me, if I'm honest. And I mean, I had other interests there with acting and that, and I wanted to explore that a little bit more, and I wasn't giving hurling my full attention, so that's why I just said goodbye to it.
What was your best day hurling for Antrim?
My best day hurling for Antrim? Probably the day we beat Dublin in Croke Park to get to the All-Ireland quarter-final against Cork. Because we were playing in the second half, I think Dublin and Armagh were playing in the Gaelic, so it was my first real experience of Croke Park with an atmosphere, with a near packed out crowd. So it was a brilliant feeling.
And would you have hurled for Antrim with your dad as manager?
I did, yeah, I did. My father and Dominic McKinley took us for our minor team, under 16 and minor, and kind of took us up to senior level as well. So I've been my dad's had me since I was about that height, underage, Cushendall and Antrim. the whole way up to senior.
When you talk to him, it's hurling, and passion screams out of him. And are you necessarily on the same wavelength?
Not quite as intense as him. I mean, it's great speaking to someone like him, and I know people like yourself and that come up and kind of really great in-depth conversations with him and react well to him because he is so passionate, and I love seeing that. I love hearing him talk about him because he is so passionate about it. But I mean, particularly for me, there were stages in which I was really passionate about it, but I mean, the last few years it kind of, I mean, it's just waved off a little bit, you know.
So club is where it all started for you, and possibly your best day playing for the club, biggest day perhaps, was your last competitive game of hurling. Can you talk to us about that?
Yeah, the All-Ireland final. I mean, that was our dream since we were about that height, to play in Croke Park. I remember running the bout cushion All-Ireland pitch pretending I was playing in an All-Ireland final. But to do that with my brother was playing, my dad was part of the coaching, you know, he coached us, my best friends were playing, Neil McManus and that, you know, to do that was just very special. I mean, to end your career in such a, I mean, we get beat, you know, but it was such a high. I mean, even coming back here after getting beat, you see the whole community and the people involved and what it means to them, seeing that in their faces, that's very special, you know, and ending it on that note for me is very special.
Tell me how you first got into acting.
How I first got into acting. Well, my interest from a very young age, watching films. I mean, my father introduced me to, I mean, westerns like Shane, the western, The Natural with Robert Redford. They're all films I loved watching films. I loved going to the cinema. But really, probably the first play I done in Belfast was when I started to take it a little bit more seriously. And
how old were you then?
I was 27.
So that's only 3 years ago?
Yeah.
In 2015?
Yep.
And you only started taking acting classes when?
When I was 27, about 3 years ago.
Right.
Yeah, in Belfast. Yeah.
And where did you start? What was the theatre that you started out in and what play?
It was the Crescent's Arts Theatre where I took the classes with a company called Belfast Talent. And it was brilliant to give me a little bit of confidence and get you out of your shell. And then the play I done was a play called Say You'll Remember Me at the Mac Theatre in Belfast, and that was an experience. You know, that was my first time going on a proper stage. You know, and the people would actually be watching something you do. And I remember the fear I felt before it, getting the sweats. You know.
Explain your first ever audition, both how you felt and also what you were doing.
First audition. It was in Queen's Student Union. I remember pressing the elevator button to go up to the 4th floor to do the audition, and I was in the elevator and I was just going to get out and leave again. I can remember thinking about it now, it gives me anxiety. But I mean, after that's one lesson I have learned. Just getting outside your comfort zone and things like that it's something I really enjoy now. But then at that time that was a big step, you know.
And how did that audition go?
It went very well. The people, as I say, the people who were auditioning me were very kind to me. I ended up getting that part in the play, and that was it.
And what was the role?
The role was of an Oxford student an Oxford student. So I was quite upper class, you know, as I am.
And where did it go to from there? So that was your starting point in terms of acting. What came next?
Next, well, I just wanted to get better at it. I was curious, you know, I wanted to study. I mean, I kind of thought of it from an athlete's perspective. If you want to get good at something, you go and you train. And I mean, if you want to get good at hurling, you would go and ask Brian Cody to coach you, if it was possible. So I went to New York and I auditioned for the Stella Adler School in New York City, and I eventually got in there and began studying.
The Stella Adler has some pretty famous alumni. Just looking through it, Marlon Brando, Robert De Niro, Martin Sheen, Benicio del Toro.
Yeah.
So it's pretty difficult to get in there. Can you explain how tough it is and how many people audition to get in?
I don't know the exact figures, how many people audition, but I'm sure it's thousands. They audition.
Per year?
Sorry?
Per year?
Oh yeah. I mean, they audition in London. They audition in all the major cities all over the world. They audition in Dublin as well. But I mean, it's just two monologues: a classical monologue, a contemporary monologue, and an interview, and away you go.
And at what point did you realise I can take this really seriously now? Was it when you were accepted into Stella Adler?
No, Because I remember the first day we all our class got together in front of all the staff and all the other students, and you had to perform a monologue. And at that time, I remember just shaking. I was like, I'm so out of my depth here, and I wanted to leave. I did. I was like, I've taken this too far here. But after doing that, and I suppose after a few weeks in class and feedback from the teachers and whatnot, it formed a kind of belief in me that, you know, I could maybe try and create a profession out of this and do this full time. You know?
Have you acted with any particularly famous people?
Not directly, no. Not directly. I mean, I've been on set with like the likes of Jamie Dornan and Gillian Anderson and stuff in the fall, but not directly, no.
And what was that like?
It was good seeing how such a high-scale production like that was done, and how the actors held themselves, and you know that was very interesting for me because it was still very fresh, which I am now still. But it was just great to see the scale of something like that and see how you could fit into it if possible, you know.
Did you feel out of your depth on the fall set?
Oh yes, aye.
In what way?
Because as I say, you go in and these people have been studying for so long, and they've got this long list of, you know, they've a long list of a CV, and you know, maybe I've like one or two things, a little bit of training, which, you know, I did feel out of my depth, you know, but I didn't let it overpower me. You know, it's not as if there's a right or a wrong way to do this, which is good. You know, you just try and bring a little piece of yourself and your own interpretation to what you're working with.
Is it a lifestyle where you struggle to make ends meet? I mean, I'm sure you have a family supporting you, but is it very hard to be standing up on your own 2 feet, considering the money probably isn't flowing in regularly?
It is hard, especially in school. Being in school, you know, it could be hard because you don't, as I say, you don't have the money. You're not going out. You're constantly in school, and you're paying for any money you do get. You're paying for classes to try and get better. You're sacrificing a lot, maybe at this stage of your career, to get better, you know, and to hopefully one day work as an actor.
I just want us back. Can you stand there and listen to me?
I'm standing here, Sam! I'm standing here! What do you want from me? Huh? What do you want from me? You want more? Is that what you want, Sam? You want more? I don't have any more to give you, Sam! I don't have any more!
Is there any role in the history of film that you wish you could play?
I wish I could play.
Or could have played?
Or could have played. Could have played. Taxi Driver, Robert De Niro. I love to shave my head, that's why. I think I love to grow a mohican. Yeah.
What effect has acting had on you as a person? I read a quote from you that said, kind of peeled away some layers. Mm-hmm. And a quote from you was, I wasn't living a truthful life. I didn't feel, there was just something a bit off. Now I know that I'm doing what I want to do.
Yeah. I mean, playing for Antrim for so many years and Cushendall and being a hurler, I felt sometimes that, you know, I can only speak about how I felt, you know. I'm not saying everyone would feel like this, but it's just, that's all I was, you know. And there was something I always knew that I just wanted something a little different than that. And going to like the likes of the drama school in New York and starting to make films and you know, I'm happy doing that, you know, because I know getting up in the morning, it's something I can do for the rest of my life. You know, I'm not trying to be a movie star this year or in 5 years' time or 10 years' time. I mean, I spoke about my father, you know, he gets up in the morning, you know, and he still wishes he could play hurling. Like, he's 52, 53 years of age and he wishes he could play hurling, you know, and he still feels that he can. And sport's such a ruthless thing because once you can't play anymore, you can't play anymore. I mean, I could get up, I could try and be an actor until I'm 80 years of age, you know. There's no time limit in that, and that's something that appealed to me as well, you know.
Can you talk to us again about stripping away that ego, like the person you were versus the person you've become?
Yeah, as I say, playing county hurling, it's just tunnel vision. Playing hurling, it's tunnel vision. You're so down the line with it, and I suppose you need to be a lot of the times.
Are you suggesting there's like a selfishness in how you are because everything is about hurling, and that's what you mean by ego?
I think you have to be. I think you have to have that selfishness to you know, if there's a stag do or your mate's wedding stag, you know, you don't go on that because that's not going to further get you closer to your goals, you know. I think you have to be selfish in that respect to achieve anything. But in terms of peeling away layers, going to school like that there and getting rid of your ego and being stupid and making a fool of yourself, allowing yourself to be embarrassed, being comfortable in your own skin, there's a lot to be said for that,
When you're a developing actor, is there a sense of feeling exposed? Because there's been so much talk lately about what's happened with Kevin Spacey and the alleged abuse there, what's happened with Harvey Weinstein.
Yeah.
Do you ever feel like an exposed person because you're kind of at the mercy of a lot of people, decision makers out there?
Yeah, I suppose I wouldn't feel so much exposed like that. I've never had an experience quite like that, but I mean, I can understand it. I mean, at this stage of your acting career, for a guy or a girl, so much is out of your control. It's left inside the room, and you're trying to get that wee bit. You're always trying to get up that ladder, and maybe sometimes you do things or you let things slip to get up that, to get to the next stage. You might say, no, look, I'll leave that. I'll put it to the back of my head because I know this man or this woman could do something good for my career in a few months. But then it comes back down to how you make your decisions every day, the values you have, and how you want to lead your life. If you want to lead your life like that, that's okay. If you don't, then there's stronger choices to be made there. I think it's a personal thing. I think we have a responsibility though to make decisions like that, for other people coming through.
There are people out there who might be a little bit weaker that are definitely getting exposed.
I'm sure there are. I mean, when you talk about weaker, I would almost say that, you give up so much to pursue a career in acting or whatever it may be, and if someone's going to help you get a wee bit further to achieve your dream, you might let that slip because you could be so desperate to get to that next level. I mean, it's a complicated scenario, but again, it goes back to a personal how you make your decisions, in your life.
So just finally then, what's the ambition for you in 2018?
2018, work with better directors, better writers, get an American visa so I can constantly work in America. Yeah. You may think I'm weak or not overly strong, but we both know he created a reality in which neither of us belong. I don't blame you for going away, and I hope you grow to realise my reasons for not wanting to stay. I sit no longer alone and I breathe once again. I just hope one day you find a way to ease your pain.
OTB AM.
In association with Air. Get Air Sport free with Air Broadband.